نعم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم اغفر لشيخنا ولوالديه ولشيوخه وعنا وعن سائر المسلمين يا رب العالمين. قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى: قال حدثنا أبو خيثمة قال حدثنا سفيان بن عيينة قال عن إبراهيم بن ميسرة عن طاووس قال: إن كان الرجل يكتب إلى ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما يسأله عن أمر فيقول الرجل الذي جاء بالكتاب: أخبر صاحبك بأن الأمر كذا وكذا، فإنا لا نكتب في الصحف إلا الرسائل والقرآن. قال حدثنا أبو خيثمة قال أخبرني ابن فضيل عن ابن شبرمة عن الشعبي قال: ما كتبت سوداء في بيضاء ولا سمعت من رجل حديث فأردت أن يعيده علي.
نعم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Hadith number 28, he mentions here that Ash-Sha'bi, and if you guys remember yesterday we briefly discussed Ash-Sha'bi. Sha'bi rahimahullah, Amir ibn Sharahil Ash-Sha'bi is from the Tabi'een and from the most knowledgeable of the Tabi'een. Now Ash-Sha'bi rahimahullah, they say that he memorized everything that he could memorize. He says about himself, there's nothing that I heard, no hadith that I heard from a man except that I have it memorized from one time and I don't need it to be repeated. SubhanAllah. And it's been narrated that sometimes he used to walk in the market. And when he walks in the market, he puts his hands or his fingers in his ears so that he doesn't hear the conversation of the people of the market. Why? Because if he hears their conversation, not only would he memorize it, not only will he eavesdrop, he'll memorize it. And he'll know their secrets and so on and so forth. Continue. We're good? All right. So he'll memorize their conversations and he'll keep it. SubhanAllah. So what he would do to avoid that, he would just walk in the market. And he was blind. All right? They say that blind people, they tend to memorize more because they're at an advantage, a disadvantage. So they like to use their other strengths. All right? If you look at some of the blind people today, we have one kid from Medina. His name is Jihad al-Maliki. He's a straight up beast. This guy, you know about him, huh? Man, it's like what? Is he 13, 14 now? Barely entering high school. He got the Quran, Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim memorized, and now he's working on the Sunan. All right? And there's a video that went viral a couple years ago in which he was asked any hadith of Sahih Bukhari, he mentioned the narrator and where it's founded and complete the hadith for you. Shaykh ibn Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, all right? He memorized Alfiyat al-Iraqi while making wudu. Ayna. And other mashayikh. Ash-Sha'bi was one of the blind scholars, all right? He used to memorize everything to the point that conversations, he would plug his ears so that he doesn't hear. Everything that he heard, every hadith that he heard, he would memorize. Now, Ash-Sha'bi was also one of the tabi'een who was involved in the fitna that happened in the year 81, the fitna that is known as Fitnat Ibn al-Ash'ath. All right, Ibn al-Ash'ath, he revolted against al-Hajjaj, and he was one of the scholars that supported this revolution. You know, there's a story mentioned by Ad-Daraqutni. Ad-Daraqutni, rahimahullah. Ad-Daraqutni, rahimahullah, he was very similar to Ash-Sha'bi. Umar ibn Ali Ad-Daraqutni passed away in the year 385. He would memorize everything. Everything that he heard, he would memorize. To the point that he memorized an entire conversation in Chinese. By accident, he just memorized. He heard it in khalas, or quarter, straight up. And then later on, it happened that these two, they were actually arguing. And they went to court based off what they were conversating on. And they brought on Ad-Daraqutni to be a witness. He came and he mentioned the entire conversation from beginning to end in Chinese, in a language that he doesn't speak. He's Persian. SubhanAllah. So it shows you that some people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them with powerful memories. All right? That doesn't mean that nobody can memorize. Every single person can memorize. Some people are quicker than others. All right, there's one guy we had in Medina, subhanAllah. I don't think I've ever seen somebody who can't memorize. One line of poetry, it takes him 200 times repeated for him to memorize it. Take any line of poetry in Arabic if you're accustomed to Arabic. Take one line of poetry. How many times do you have to repeat it for you to get it done? Some people quickly, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, 20, 50, 200 times for him to memorize it, just to memorize it. That's not even including a review. This guy, by the time he was in the middle of high school, he had 7,000 or 8,000 line poems locked down. It's like working out. You start small. My man Bashir is smiling. It's like working out, People are, some people are naturally blessed. Genes, the food they eat, whatever it may be. Some people, they have a rough start. But at the end of the day, work ethic is what puts you over the top. Some people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them gifts, but they don't realize. There's one kid, he used to mess around in Medina. He was a young guy. He didn't take it seriously, but this guy memorized Bulugh al-Maram in 19 days. Bulugh al-Maram is 1350 hadith. He memorized it in 19 days. Just imagine the average. He was just a chill guy. Exam season, the night before, sometimes the day of, he just takes the book and he flips through it. Boom, 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 boom. Shows up. Gets an A. Doesn't have to try. And then the rest of the semester, he's just chilling. A person like that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him talents. SubhanAllah. So some people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed with talent. Do they take advantage of it? Sometimes no. And others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give them that talent, but because they have to work extra hard, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them that knowledge. So al-hifz is all about persistence and, prudence and so on and so forth. And ikhwani, there's this culture that is going on right now between students of knowledge, and that is not memorizing. All right? People are saying, you don't have to memorize. You have to memorize. All right? The problem is if you memorize and don't understand. That's a problem. But understanding without memorizing is also a problem. Because what ilm do you have? At the end of the day, it's about what you have stored in your head. If you're just going to go refer back to a book or your phone every 2 minutes, that's problematic. All right? Some of the brothers were advised, they're like, hey, don't memorize. Don't waste your time memorizing the Quran. Don't waste your time memorizing the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. What is ilm? Al-ilm is Quran and Sunnah, all right? If you don't have it memorized, then what do you have? إِذَا لَمْ تَكُنْ حَافِظًا وَاعِيًا فَجَمْعُكَ لِلْكُتُبِ لَا يَنْفَعُ أَأَحْضُرُ بِالْجَهْلِ فِي مَجْلِسٍ وَعِلْمِي فِي الْكُتُبِ مُسْتَوْدَعُ. He says, if you don't have anything memorized, then you bring in all of these books together and creating large private libraries that will not benefit you. You're going to come to a majlis in a session like this with ignorance, and then you're going to say, I have my knowledge stored in my library or in my storage. It's not going to work. All right? And memorization is very important, and so is understanding. Al-hifz ma'al fahm. All right? And that is why a beginner student of knowledge, in the beginning, he should heavily focus on memorizing. And then later on, as he goes, all right, he should focus on understanding. Memorization comes before understanding. All right, you have two extremes. You have guys that memorize, mashallah, they have a lot of books memorized. But you ask them very simple questions in different sciences, they don't know. He might have Ibn Malik down from beginning to end. But you ask him to do i'rab, or you ask him to speak Arabic a little bit, he might come up and say, Inna alhamdu. Allah musta'an. What's the point? Other guys, he might memorize a whole book, 1,000-line book in usul al-fiqh or in fiqh, or you might memorize al-Bukhari. But then, when it comes to the fiqh of that hadith, what is the fiqh of that hadith? He doesn't know. So, importance of memorization. The other extreme is, all right, you read books, you attend classes, but you don't memorize nothing. At the end of the day, how much ilm do you really have? You got to have something, you got to have a base to go from, all right? That base, you can build on it. But if you have no infrastructure, you have no base, you're just going to be all over the place. And that's why you see a lot of students of knowledge. They're all over the place. He might talk about one issue, all right? But another issue, completely clueless. All right? You set a base and then you move on from there. Ibn Badran, rahimahullah, he says, he talks about how there are some students of knowledge that study for years. But when you look at their knowledge, it's not adding up. The number of years and the amount of knowledge is not the same. What's the problem here? The problem is, number one, the methodology of seeking knowledge is not there. The methodology of seeking knowledge is not there. All right? So we got to follow this methodology of understanding and memorizing. Naam.
أحسن الله إليكم. قال حدثنا أبو خيثمة قال أخبرنا ابن عيينة عن ابن أبي نجيح عن مجاهد وجعلنا للمتقين إماما قال نأتم بهم ونقتدي بهم حتى يقتدي بنا من بعدنا. قال حدثنا أبو خيثمة قال حدثنا جرير عن رجل عن ليث عن مجاهد وجعلني مباركا أينما كنت قال معلما للخير. قال حدثنا أبو خيثمة قال حدثنا جرير عن مغيرة قال قيل لسعيد بن جبير رضي الله عنه تعلم أحدا أعلم منك قال نعم عكرمة. فلما قتل سعيد بن جبير قال إبراهيم ما خلف بعده مثله. قال وقال الشعبي لما بلغه موت إبراهيم هلك الرجل قال فقيل له نعم قال لو قلت أنعي العلم ما خلف بعده مثله. والعجب أنه يفضل ابن جبير على نفسه وسأخبركم عن ذلك. إنه نشأ في أهل بيت فقه فأخذ فقههم ثم جالسنا فأخذ صفوة حديثنا إلى فقه أهل بيته فمن كان مثله.
Naam. Allah subhanAllah, man. Like we said yesterday, you compare the Salaf to us, Bonu Shasir. Huge difference. Here, Sa'id ibn Jubayr was asked. Who was Sa'id ibn Jubayr? Who can remind me? Who was Sa'id ibn Jubayr? We mentioned this yesterday. He's from one of the Fuqaha 7 of Medina. Is that correct? That's correct? That's incorrect. The Sa'id that's one of the Fuqaha 7 is Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. Alright, who is it? Something going on upstairs. I don't know. Yes. Somebody check what's going on upstairs. Hey, now. Something upstairs though. طيب. Hey, now. Huh? Mawla ibn Abbas. Alright, what was he? One of the students of Ibn Abbas. Alright, and Al-Hajjaj killed him in the year 95 after the Hijrah. And a famous story because he revolted against him earlier. And then he hid for about 11 years and then he found him. And then he found him in Mecca and he was chained all the way back to his base in Iraq. And the rest is history. Sa'id ibn Jubayr was asked, who is more knowledgeable than you? He said, Ikrimah. Ikrimah is his peer. Ikrimah is his peer. Alright? You don't see that about peers. A lot of times what happens between peers, even if they're scholars, what happens? They bump heads. Alright? Each one, they go at it. I'm more knowledgeable. Yeah, they may not say that in public, but in private circles, they may say that. They weren't like that. Sa'id is saying that Ikrimah is more knowledgeable than me. Alright? When Sa'id ibn Jubayr was killed by Al-Hajjaj, what did he say? What did Ibrahim, another peer of theirs, Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, who wasn't from the students of Ibn Abbas, he was part of another halaqah, which is in Kufa. Sa'id ibn Jubayr and Ikrimah, they were both based in Mecca. Ibrahim was based in Kufa, but they're all from the same generation. Alright? Ibrahim, he says, the most knowledgeable man of today has died. That's what Ibrahim is saying about Sa'id ibn Jubayr. Alright. Al-Sha'bi rahimahullah was also from that circle. He's from Basra and Kufa in that area. What does he say? He says that the most knowledgeable amongst us is Ibrahim. Yeah, and you see the circle? Each one is saying they're all peers. All these guys are the same circle. You look at the generation after the Tabi'een and the generations after them, generally peers, they collide. Allah musta'an, even if they're scholars. And today people, they take advantage of this by instigating between them and creating more fire. The biggest problem are students of knowledge. All right? Two sheikhs that are probably aqran, that are contemporaries, bump heads. And it leads to problems. But look how they were. They used to respect each other. They used to honor their ilm. And they never used to boast. Because in reality, a lot of times, they may say, they may make it into deen and religion affairs, but in reality, it goes back to personal issues and envy. And man, one thing about students of knowledge and scholars, one thing that has ruined them is hasad. Everything else, they could go over it. But hasad between scholars and between Ahl al-Ilm, people of knowledge, gets really, really ugly. And we have to realize this. Where's Abu Yas?